Hello everyone, my name is Olivia, and today I wanted to recommend some of my favorite cozy reads. I planned on filming this a lot sooner in the beginning of autumn, but so many circumstances happened that prevented me from doing so. So I'm still happy that I'm able to put this out for the month of November so you can get into the cozy autumnal mood. I think these books would also be really fun to read during the winter time. They just all have this very atmospheric vibe that makes you feel warm and cozy and really makes you want to snuggle up inside and read for hours. So let's get right into it. The first book I want to recommend I actually read this year and fell in love with, and it is The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mai Mochizuki. The Full Moon Coffee Shop reminds me a lot of Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I also recommend for some cozy vibes. It's a very popular book on BookTube and BookTok, and I fell in love with this one as well. So I did want to highlight it, but I wanted to recommend The Full Moon Coffee Shop for fans of Before the Coffee Gets Cold. The Full Moon Coffee Shop, like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, is split into 4 parts, and we follow 4 different characters, but they're all interconnected over time. So all these characters are kind of down on their luck, and they're dealing with a lot of transitional moments in their life, and they're feeling a bit lost. So during a full moon, all of these characters come across the Full Moon Coffee Shop, which is a magical coffee shop run by cats. These cats don't actually take any coffee orders, they give you the coffee that they think would best fit your personality. And while these characters are drinking their perfectly made and tailored drinks in this cafe, these cats read the characters' birth charts. So this deals a lot with astrology and the way that astrology kind of plays a large role in people's lives, and how you can read your zodiac charts in order to get to know yourself a little bit better and get to know the journey that you're going to go on throughout your life. So this one also has like a magical element to it with these cats that are able to speak and interact with these people, but it's also rooted in realism because it is rooted in actual astrological knowledge that is shared throughout this novel. And I thought it was a really fun, quick read that taught me more about astrology and different placements that these characters have, and how those placements play a role in their life and their journey, and how they're going to move forward with the issues that they're dealing with. But it was also just a really sweet read because I loved the cats. They all have very distinct personalities, and I thought it was a really unique concept, and I loved the way that astrology played a very large role in this story. I'm really happy that Ballantine Books provided me with an early copy. It'll provide you with some life lessons that even if you don't have that specific astrological sign like the character, you can still take some pieces of wisdom from these cats and move forward with your own life. And I cannot recommend this enough, especially for those who love Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Another book by a Japanese author that I cannot recommend enough is Kiki's Delivery Service. Kiki's Delivery Service I actually didn't know was previously a book before it became a movie, and I decided to pick it up on a whim on audiobook, and I fell in love with the story all over again. Kiki's Delivery Service is one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films, and finding out that it was a book and diving back into the story again was such a delight. It follows a girl named Kiki who is a teenage witch, and when they reach a certain age, I believe she's 12 years old or maybe 13 years old, they kind of go off on their own away from their family and make a name for themselves as a witch. And she decides to use her powers to help those in town to deliver things back and forth between the villagers. But it's also a larger discussion about following your passion, but also being burnt out by your passions, because we all have something that we are really excited about and something that calls to us and pushes us forward as people. But what happens when the thing you love turns into just a job? What happens when something that you used to be so excited about now burns you out and leaves you exhausted? And Kiki's Delivery Service really explores that through the eyes of a young witch who is just starting out on her journey, and she is putting her all into her magic and to her little business that she started. But over time, she eventually gets burnt out, and she has to learn how to deal with that and heal from that. So I cannot recommend Kiki's Delivery Service enough. Both the movie and the book, they're both incredibly cozy, cute, and will warm your heart. Another book that deals with magical characters and warm and cozy drinks that I cannot recommend enough is The Tea Dragon Society. This is the first installment in the series, and I also loved the sequel. I just don't happen to own own a copy of it, but the Tea Dragon Society follows a group of people who help nurture and take care of these tea dragons. These are adorable tea dragons who each grow their own ingredients that people pluck from them gently in order to make some magical cozy tea. So in the back of the graphic novel, we have kind of a glossary of all the different tea dragons. There's a jasmine tea dragon, a chamomile tea dragon, a ginger tea dragon. There are so many different types of tea dragons that these characters interact with, where they coexist with these dragons and they use their ingredients in a really wonderful and kind way to not only nurture themselves but also take care of the dragons as well, because they're all really tiny and they kind of remind me of puppies where you have to take care of them. They need someone to help nurture them and keep them safe. And this is just a really cute slice of life graphic novel. The art style is absolutely beautiful. I love how vibrant the colors are. I love the concepts of these dragons. I think it's a really unique concept, and I also just love Kay O'Neill's art style, and overall this is a really cute series that will warm your heart and is also a great thing to dive into if you're in a book slump, because it's a very quick read. You can finish it in one sitting and you can feel really satisfied to not only have fallen in love with a really cute story, but also to have finished a book that quickly. Another adorable graphic novel that I need everyone to read is Garlic and the Vampire. Garlic is a cute little club of garlic who lives on a farm with a bunch of other vegetables, and they live with a really nice witch named Agnes, but everything changes when they find out that a bloodthirsty vampire lives right on the outskirts of their town. So all the vegetables get really scared of this vampire, and they decide to volunteer Garlic to go investigate this vampire, because clearly Garlic is the right person to send into a vampire's lair. So this is another slice of life story where we follow these vegetables who are all taking care of one another. They're living in their garden, they're living with their witch, and they're all just a really happy family. And we follow Garlic, who feels kind of like an outsider. She doesn't feel like she truly fits in, and she thinks this is her chance to impress everyone and investigate this vampire. And what turns out to be somewhat of a mystery kind of turns into this really cute story that I think is adorable. I think I read this when I was in a book slump, and whenever I'm in one, I decide to pick up a graphic novel because they're quick to read and they don't take too much brain power, because usually I'm just admiring the art along the way but also reading the pieces of dialogue. And I decided to pick this one up on a whim, and I thought it was so cute. This one also has a couple of sequels. My library just doesn't happen to have these sequels, so I haven't been able to read them, but it is so cute. It is so quirky and another very cute concept that I just think is so heartwarming. The next thing that I have to recommend really inspired me to get back into reading and to fall in love with literature all over again, because this has actually been my worst year in terms of quantity. I've only read about 47 books, and I'm filming this in October, and usually by the time we're in October I'm up to like 75, maybe 80 books read. So my reading has been cut in half because I just haven't had the motivation to read. A lot of things have happened this year. This is probably like one of my worst years yet, if I'm being completely honest. So I haven't been in the mood to read, but when I read this year, it really inspired me to fall in love with stories again and fall in love with the act of reading, because the act of reading is, one, so personal, but two, it should be a moment for you to fall in love with someone's writing. It should be a moment for you to just escape the world around you. And I kind of lost that along the way, and I was only ever seeing it as a numbers game, but this really reminded me of the beauty of books in general, and it is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hanff. Helen is a woman who decided to start a correspondence with a bookstore in England. She lives in New York and she's not satisfied with the bookstores around her. All the books that she wants to read aren't available to her, so she decides to start writing to this bookstore in England, and they have the copies of the books that she wants. So this is a collection of letters between Helen and the bookstore employees. It changes every once in a while who's writing back to her, but they begin to have this this rapport between one another where Helen is just a really quirky, passionate type of person who will go on these tangents about books and her life. And in reply, we have these very serious bookstore sellers who are just trying to make her happy, provide her with her next book that she has requested. And it's a very cute relationship because we get to see the transition from Helen just writing to this bookstore in hopes of getting a specific title, and it turns into this friendship where these bookstore sellers actually learn to love Helen, and Helen learns to love them along the way because they've cultivated this relationship with one another through the use of letter writing. I also forgot to say that this is nonfiction, so these are actually letters between Helen and this bookstore in the UK. And the letters are also very short. It's a very easy book to get through. Another book that you can pick up when you're in a book slump. And over time, when you're reading these letters, you fall in love with Helen's quirky personality, and you fall in love with the different booksellers who write back to her, and their discussions of literature and the specific titles that she reads along the way is so interesting. And it reignited my love for letter writing because I do have a pen pal, and it also reignited my love for literature because I love hearing about other people's passions. It makes me feel inspired to hear them get so excited about something that they love. So that's also why I love YouTube, because I love hearing people get excited about things that they've read or things that they've watched. It inspires me to get back into reading and to get back into watching movies. It always just leaves me feeling so excited about life, and this made me feel excited about reading again. Another classic story that I always recommend on this channel that I will not stop recommending is Sheets by Brenna Thumler. Sheets is one of my first ever graphic novels that I picked up at BookCon in like 2018, maybe 2019, and I fell in love with this story. So we follow Marjorie, who lives above a laundromat that her family owns, and she's recently dealing with the loss of her mother, and she feels very alone in life when she comes across a sheet ghost named Wendell. Wendell also kind of feels like an outcast, so together these two characters form a connection with one another in this really cute atmospheric town that is just so beautifully illustrated. Let me find you a page that can show you the coloring and just the art style. It's somewhat more detailed than the Tea Dragon Society, and it uses a lot of pinks, blues, and purples, and I love those colors together. And overall, this feels like the perfect story to read between autumn and winter because it has that cold, lonely vibe that I think the winter carries, and also the end of autumn as well. And overall, this is just a really sweet story that also has a sequel and a third installment as well. I've yet to read the third installment, but I really do love the first one, and I always recommend this on my channel because it's just a classic story that I have reread and fallen back in love with, and it's just a graphic novel that I will not stop recommending. I think it is totally worth your time, and it's also really cute because it has a sheet ghost, and I love sheet ghosts, so this is the perfect story to pick up around this time of year. Another adorable graphic novel to pick up that also feels so cozy and perfect for this time of year is Pumpkinheads. Pumpkinheads is written by Rainbow Rowell and illustrated by Faith Erin Hicks, and this is a story of two people who work in a pumpkin patch, and they don't realize that they have feelings for one another, but over the course of like one day, it all kind of comes spilling out as they get into a bunch of shenanigans in the pumpkin patch, and it is the cutest story ever. It has all the classic autumnal vibes with the drinks, with the activities, with the clothing. It is just a love letter to autumn in graphic novel form. It'll make you feel cozy, it'll make you feel inspired to do a lot of fall activities. It is a cute, heartwarming story that I also always gab about on this channel. I haven't gabbed about it in a couple of years, but just know that I'm always thinking about Pumpkinheads because it is such a cute concept. I love autumn. I love stories about autumn. If you have any recommendations for graphic novels or stories all about autumn, please put them down below because I can never get enough of it. It always makes me excited for the season. It always makes me feel so warm and cozy, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. And that's exactly what you're looking for because you clicked this video and you've gotten this far in the video, so like clearly we're looking for the same thing, you know? I feel like this is my most serious book that I have to recommend on this list because everything else is very lighthearted, very quick to read, but this one is like an actual book that feels cozy. I had a hard time finding literary fiction that feels cozy, I have a couple of other recommendations that I'm not going to feature on this video, like The Shadow of the Wind and The Starless Sea, but I feel like those are a given when thinking of cozy autumnal reads. But I have another story that I wanted to highlight, and it is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. This one's a little bit darker because we deal with a woman who recently lost her mother, and she is grieving that loss while also trying to make a name for herself as a writer in the world. So we deal with not only explorations of grief, but also the exploration of what it's like to be a writer and or a creative in this world, and how it always feels like a competition where everyone is hyping themselves up and everyone's bragging about their work and all their achievements. And we have our main character who feels very lost and isolated in the world that she's trying to enter. She's so passionate about wanting to become an author, but she just feels so disconnected by the colleagues and the people around her. And I really like the story because it explores what it's like to move from one chapter to the next in your life, and you may not even see that it's coming, but this kind of encapsulates that feeling of moving from one area of your life into another, and that transition, and how you can have growing pains and you can make mistakes and you can learn from them and you can make new friends and fall in and out of love. This story captures the essence of that feeling in life in this story. I definitely do want to reread it in the future because I remember loving it so much, but I don't remember too much of the plot. I just remember the vibes that it gave off, and that's the vibe that Writers and Lovers has. So this is for the literary fiction girlies who want something a little bit more serious than all the other stories that I recommended. And you can also add The Starless Sea and The Shadow of the Wind to your TBR as well if you have not read those, because those are two of my favorite books of all time. Cannot recommend them enough, but I just didn't include them in this video because, like, I feel like they're a little bit overdone. And the last book that I have to recommend is a little bit different from the rest of these stories because a lot of them have autumnal vibes, but this one is centered around Christmas. And I find it hard to fall in love with like holiday romances or like autumnal romances because I feel like they're like sickly sweet in a way that I just cannot get on board with. But I did fall in love with this story because it just felt like the perfect amount of Christmas vibes without being too much, without being too cheesy, and it is The Mistletoe Motive. I have not read this book in a while, so I don't remember too much of it, but again, I remember the vibes. I remember the vibes, guys. So let me read you a little bit of the synopsis. It says, it's a slow burn, enemies to lovers holiday romance, perfect for fans of the hating game and You've Got Mail. And it says that Jonathan Frost and Gabriella have something in common, and it's a healthy dose of mutual contempt. They don't like each other, but they have to work together in this bookstore that is currently dealing with a lot of financial issues, and they have to try and figure out a way to save this bookstore before it crashes and burns just in time for the holiday season, of course. So Gabriella and Jonathan decide to strike up a deal with one another as they work in this bookstore together. Whoever gets the most amount of sales by December will stay on in the new year, and the loser will resign. And in true You've Got Mail fashion, Gabriella is also conversing with someone online who is just so perfect for her and understands her completely without knowing that it's secretly Jonathan. And as they are forming this plan to outsell one another during the holiday season, they start to get to know one another and realize that they have a lot more in common. And this is just a really cute, hallmarky type of story that doesn't feel too cheesy and has the perfect amount of holiday vibes to get you into the holiday spirit. And I thought it was a really cute story, and even though I don't remember a lot of the plot because I read so many books between that book and now, it's still a book that I think of when I think of cozy vibes, because again, I haven't read a lot of holiday books. I've tried so many times, but they just don't stick with me. But this one felt like a genuine romance that just happened to take place during the holiday season. And those are a ton of cozy books to pick up during this time of the year. You can pick these up whenever you want, but I just think that autumn and winter are the perfect seasons to cozy up with a candle and a warm drink and to dive into a story that kind of takes you out of reality for a couple of hours and puts you into a really cute and quirky world that you won't want to leave. Be sure to comment your favorite cozy books down below because I would love to add more to my TBR. I'm always looking for cozy graphic novels to read and also cozy literary fictions that make me want to curl up in bed and read for hours. If you want to follow me anywhere else on social media, all my links will be down below. I'm very active over on Instagram and TikTok, and if there are any book recommendation videos that you'd like to see from me in the future, please comment them down below as well. And if you stayed this far in the video, leave your favorite cozy emoji down below. It could be the cute teddy bear, it could be a scarf, it could be a cup of coffee, whichever one you want. Pick the emoji of your choice so we can see who stays for the longest in this video. If you've stayed this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone who leaves a comment or a like. And if you have not subscribed so already, be sure to do so. And I think that's everything that I have to say at the end of these videos. And I hope you have an amazing November, and I will see you around very soon. Bye!